Okay, for lesson 2, you're going to be covering paragraph structure. So by analyzing the structure of a paragraph, you can see how the author develops or adds information, how they refine and clarify information, and how why this is an important topic for the reader to understand. So the author's purpose is to convey facts. There's no flowery language or unnecessary sentences that stray away from that main topic that they're talking about. So we're going to look at 2 different strategies when writing paragraphs. So when you're looking at them, you're going to break them down looking for these things. One is called the meal plan. Okay, and the other one is a races paragraph. And we in our class use races strategy when we're writing paragraphs, but they're basically the same thing. They're just labeled a little bit differently. So we're just going to look at both of them. That way you kind of understand if the races strategy doesn't quite explain it, maybe the meal plan strategy will explain it. But you're going to need to be able to write these type of paragraphs when you do your argumentative essay for the next unit. And you need to be able to look at other people's articles or text and be able to break them down and make sure that you're looking for these things in their writing. So let's go ahead and watch the 2 videos on the first one will be on the meal plan and the other one will be on the races strategy.
So analysis and evidence both occur not, in a vacuum, right? They both occur within paragraphs. Now the meal plan is a way to conceptualize paragraphs. It's just meant to conceptualize the elements that need to be present in an academic paragraph. So the meal plan is 4 parts, MEAL, and it stands for the 4 components that have to be present in the paragraph. Now I don't mean sentences, but components. So bear with me here if this is new. So a paragraph should always start with the main idea or topic sentence. It should always include both evidence and analysis. Evidence and analysis are paired together. Because if we have a paragraph that's all evidence, then we're missing that analysis, right? We don't have the author's voice. It's just summary. If we have a paragraph that's all analysis without any evidence, that's where we get into opinion. Because in academic writing, we always want to support our ideas with evidence, and that's what makes it analysis, is when we pair our ideas with evidence. If we just have our ideas, then it's just opinion, right? So we always have to pair evidence and analysis. And then we also need to summarize or conclude the paragraph with some sort of lead out sentence. Now, I have to say, sometimes a main idea has a little bit of analysis or evidence in it, or sometimes a lead out or concluding sentence has a little bit of analysis in it. And that's okay. Those kind of lines can be a little bit blurry depending on the paragraph. So that's okay too, but you always need to have some sort of element of each of these in a paragraph. And that's why I said that it's not each sentence, because we don't have paragraphs in academic writing that are always one sentence of each of these, right? That's not what we're advocating for here at the Writing Center. But instead, you're always going to start a paragraph with some sort of main idea or topic sentence. And then you might switch out different numbers or combinations of evidence and analysis. So you can see in this sample paragraph, we start with the main idea, and then we might have evidence, then we might have analysis, then back to evidence, 2 more sentences of analysis, and then our lead out sentence, right? So that's just one way we might construct a paragraph. We might have another paragraph that has a main idea, then has analysis, then 3 sentences of evidence, then another analysis, and then a lead out. So you can see how we just need to have each parts of these.
Hey guys, what is up? This is Dustin, the writing tutor, and today I want to talk about how you can write very organized paragraphs by using the RACES method. So what is the RACES method? Well, it is a strategy to write organized paragraphs, and it's used for paragraph response questions. So let's take a look at what it stands for. It's this acronym that stands for, first, restate the keywords. Sometimes you'll see restate the question. One of my students said, I like restate the keywords because it's really the keywords within the question that we want to put in our first sentence. So this is what it'll look like. Maybe we have a question like, what led to the fall of the Western Roman Empire? The restatement will take some of those words and put them in the beginning of the sentence. The Western Roman Empire fell. Notice that we've changed the form of the word here, fall to fell, and we've changed the order and haven't used all of the words. Some students get confused and think that the restatement is simply writing out the question again, but it's not. We're changing the question into the start of an answer. That brings us to the next slide, which is answer the question. Here we want to provide a clear answer that gets right to the point. You can put it in the same sentence as the restatement. So, for instance, we might write something like this. The Western Roman Empire fell in part because of economic turmoil within the empire. As you can see here, you might want to write a first draft and then a second draft before you commit to using this in your paragraph. All right, so that brings us to citing evidence. Now that we have our answer, we have to prove that the answer is true. So we want to provide evidence to support it. So we're going to take evidence from the text or the texts that you're working with. And evidence can be stated in your own words. That would be called paraphrasing. Or it could be a direct quote. If you're using a direct quote, note that you need to introduce the quotation. And in both cases, especially at higher levels of writing, you need to cite the source or show where the source came from. So in this case, we can start the cite evidence section with something like, for instance. For instance, document 1 states that because of overspending, Rome used high taxes to pay its military and ensure the defense of its borders. Document 3 reveals that many wealthy Romans avoided paying taxes by moving into the countryside where they would establish their own fiefdoms. So note here that I have used MLA citations to show where this information came from. And I also used that for the paraphrase, and that's what you should be doing as well. Now, these are just made up names. Smith and Johnson are two of the most common names in the United States. And so that's just to show you how this works. The next part is to explain the evidence. And here's where we want to clarify how the evidence supports our answer. We don't want to just, make the evidence, say it in another way, but we want to continue to develop the paragraph. So here I state, in other words, because of high expenses, Roman leaders levied high taxes on their citizens. And then I'm showing the effect of this. This, in turn, led to further economic problems and political instability as some citizens evaded taxation and sought independence within the empire. Our last letter stands for sum it up. So this is where you're going to restate your answer in a new way and bring the paragraph to a close. You'll see here that in the first sentence, I wrote, the Western Roman Empire fell in part because of a failing economy. In the last sentence, I expanded upon what I meant by in part. So I said, while there were many factors that contributed to Rome's fall, economic failure played a major role in the decline of the empire. So I've kind of come at it from a fresh angle here, and that's what you want to do as well. Don't just change a word or two, but try to express your answer in a fresh or new way. All right, so that brings us to signal phrases, and these are some ways that we can transition easily between the different parts of races. So when we cite evidence, we can use for instance or according to the text, or for example, and there are many others as well. Explanation can be signaled by phrases like this shows, or in other words, and summing it up can be signaled through in sum, in short, and many others as well. Okay, so let's do a brief review. Think about what each letter of races stands for, and I'll ask you to write it down on a piece of paper. You can pause the video while you do this. Okay, so let's review. R stands for restate the keywords from the question. A stands for answer the question. C stands for cite the evidence. E stands for explain the evidence. And S stands for sum it up. In review 2, you can take a moment to think through each part of races. In this paragraph, where did we see restatement? Where did we see an answer, cite evidence, the explanation, and sum it up? To check your answer, you can go back to the earlier slides within the video. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of the video. If you like videos like this, if you find them helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you need my help, I'm at goodenglish.tutors.com. Finally, if you want to use this presentation on your own to teach your own students or to teach yourself, you can get it in the link below. I'll see you next time.